Welcome to Powerhouse. Joining us today is Sonia Samtani. She's an award-winning Wellpreneur and the founder of All About You Center. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
And great having you. I'm so excited for our chat. We've met before a few times and always love hearing about how you started, your background, and your stories. So with that, maybe you can give a quick overview about yourself and your background.
Sure. So at the moment, I am a hypnotherapy trainer and I'm the founder of a center called All About You. And we provide training in hypnotherapy. We do private sessions and we provide alternative therapies as well. Mm-hmm. I got started in this when I was very, very young, actually. So when I was young, I had this inclination that I wanted to do something to contribute to people emotionally. And so when I was in university, I actually joined the Samaritans, which I can say now. And when I did that, I got some training on just listening to people and being with them when they're sharing their emotions. And I found that so natural to do. And I actually found that that was probably the most honest conversation that I was having at that time and maybe that I've ever had, because we're now talking beyond the ego. We're not trying to look good. The calls that I was listening to was really talking about deep pain. And I just thought that that is so enlightening and so beautiful to be with. And then it had me reflect on myself, on how much I was trying to do well and look good and pretend everything is okay. And these conversations were outside of that. And it felt just so nice to be in that space. So that was my first insight into this. And I dedicated myself to that. I did it for a good 3 years. And in that, I did a lot of self-reflection as well. And I was reflecting on myself. Like, I don't have a catastrophic story of lost a leg in a tsunami or something, but I do have something that most people have, which is I've got my wounds, I've got my self-limiting beliefs, and I had my coping mechanisms, which, I personally believe that everyone eats the ice cream of I'm not good enough. We just need to look at which flavor. So I definitely ate the ice cream of I'm not good enough growing up. And my flavor was that, there was something wrong with me and I played small as a result of it. And so it impacted my confidence levels. And as I was moving along in university, in that Samaritan program, I began to look at why do I feel this way? And why do I behave this way? So it starts with a belief system. Why did I cultivate that belief system? It was my interpretation based upon my childhood experiences. What do I need to do to move through them? And so I started off experimenting on me. I was my first client. I'm my most dedicated and ongoing client. I started reading books. I did self-therapy. Then I went and I sought for things. I joined courses. I did Tony Robbins' program. I did the entire program with him. And then I got invited to be on his team. And then I was in that realm of personal development and personal power. And that was amazing. That was such a great experience for me to be in that buzz, in that energy. I was in my early 20s. I'd just graduated from university. And then from there, I discovered hypnotherapy, which I got done on me. And when I experienced hypnotherapy, what I found at that time was I didn't need to find a better way to cope. I could understand where my limiting beliefs came from, and I could take responsibility for them, reframe my interpretations, release the emotions that I had. And then I started believing something completely different about myself and the way that I saw the world. It shifted my whole perspective. And that's how I got into this work personally. And organically, I made a profession out of it because I was invited to be a teacher and I was invited to learn how to do it. And I was invited to learn how to train in it. And those opportunities began to come and I took them.
Wow, that's amazing. Would you say that's your biggest break, is to be invited to be part of the Tony Robbins instructors?
I would say yes, that was my first biggest break, to be invited. And I remember when I was invited, I was attending the course and I was supposed to share something with my partner, share your dream life. And so I said, my dream life is to be in this industry of personal development and maybe to work for Tony Robbins. And the person next to me, he looks at me, he's like, I think I can make that happen. And I was like, really? Who are you? And at that point, I didn't know whether he meant it, he didn't mean it, but that was enough. The fact that he even said that was enough. And it turned out that he was the vice president of sales. He was silently interviewing me the whole time. At the end of it, he actually got me a job offer, and then he followed up a few months later. So 3 months later, I was on stage in Australia in the same program with Tony.
Wow. That is amazing. And that is also part of, if you are open to asking and saying what you want, right? Something will kind of happen and align. You mentioned it earlier, but I just wanted to delve a little deeper in terms of what made you take that course. I mean, that is a big commitment as well, right? So did you want to really kind of dive deeper and kind of enroll in the course to learn more, or just personally interested?
Both. I felt like when I'm having these real conversations without the mask, without the filter, something in me just felt alive. And then when I started talking about topics like belief systems, where do they come from? What's your purpose of life? Why do we behave the way that we behave? What's behind our sabotaging behavior? These kind of topics interest me so much. I mean, until today, what I do in my spare time is I actually look up courses and techniques, and I read up about my industry, and I listen to something every day to further my knowledge in this. And, I know people that say, oh, in my spare time, I want nothing to do with my work and I want to do something completely different. And with me, I'm like, I'm going deeper into it just because I love the topic so much.
That's great. That's just an indication that you're so passionate about it, right? And definitely like from the beginning, you've already know what you're interested in and you delve deeper. And then it's great that in your spare time, you're still doing it and probably dreaming about it at night and thinking up, wake up. Wake up with great ideas.
Dreams are really interesting because they're processing whatever's happened during the day. And at some point of the dream cycle, you're also moving into a predictable future that is in frequency and alignment with where you are right now. So if we're actually studying dreams, it's very interesting for us to read what it's telling us about where we are now and the future that we're stepping into.
Wow. Now, is it hard to always then experiment on yourself, right? Because you mentioned that in the beginning, you do that to practice, but I'm sure you keep going. Is it hard? Like, would you overanalyze, you feel, or think you just know when to kind of compartmentalize different things?
Yeah, I constantly do work on myself. I do a lot of self-reflection. I do a lot of it on my own. And I also know that that's not enough. So I do have therapists and I train people to become therapists. And one of the things that I'm a big advocate about is that it doesn't end, right? It's like, you don't go to the gym once. You don't do therapy once. It's not about it ending. You're going to keep evolving and you'll do different types of work on yourself for different reason and different types of therapies, but maybe with the same practitioner if they're evolving or different practitioners, but that's not going to end. So yes, I do work on myself. I reflect on myself, both by myself and with my trusted therapists and practitioners. And that's been beautiful for me. I plan to continue doing that till my last breath.
Nice. That's very nice. And over the years, I guess, what do you see as the biggest category or what type of therapy, I guess, that you see from the clients? What is something that they request the most? And is that something that usually end up to be what they need? Or is that usually something else that you will recommend and kind of keep working on that path?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? Because in therapy, we also differentiate between somebody's presenting issue and the real issue. And the presenting issue that somebody comes with is what's not working in your life in terms of your behavior or the result that you're getting. So people come with something to do with their behavior. Like a very common one is anxiety. So I'm getting panic attacks, or I'm not able to speak in public, or I'm waking up and I'm feeling anxious and there's a borderline anxiety, background anxiety on a daily basis. That's the presenting issue. What's behind that would be everything is a solution for something deeper. So anxiety is a solution for something. Smoking is a solution for something. Binge eating is a solution for something. So what the body is doing with anxiety, it's releasing stuff. It's releasing the tightness, the tension, and everything that you've been holding. So what have you been holding? Maybe the pressure to perform. Why do I have the pressure to perform? Because without that, I feel not good enough. Well, why do I feel not good enough without that? Because I've linked my self-value, self-esteem to my performance. Because when I was young, I interpreted that the only way to be lovable is to do well. And so the real issue is that I don't feel lovable enough, and I've linked self-esteem to doing well. The presenting issue is this anxiety that I feel before speaking in public. That is typically what we get. We get a performance and then we get, well, what's going on underneath? And then we work to discover both of them. And then through healing the root, we're healing the behavior.
And usually how long, I mean, I know it's very personal, but in terms of just on average, how long does it take for someone to kind of be able to discover that underlying issue and then be able to release that pressure?
Depending on how open they are, even one session alone can be beautiful. So in one session alone, depending on how open the client is, how much work they've done done on themselves before. I have released 20 years of chronic pain in the shoulder recently. I mean, just yesterday, I worked on panicking to do with public speaking. That was released. Today, I got a message that she gave the speech without the panic feeling that she's had for the recent 2 years before doing that. And before that, she was okay. So if the person is open and ready, one session alone is beautiful. If the person perhaps is new to this or has, certain things to work through, then it can take a little bit longer. And this is not to blame anybody. We're all in different stages of our development. And then, so I would say that give yourself at least 5 sessions to be able to see the difference and look at the difference in the frequency and the intensity of what your presenting issue is. So if before the frequency was, let's say, 3 times a day, and I felt it like an 8 out of 10, now it's once a day, or maybe like 3 times a week, and it's like a 4 out of 10. That's a big difference. And it's like a change in your life just by that alone, even if it's not eliminated yet.
Right. Sounds amazing. That just sounds like you can have quite a lot of progress in a short amount of time, as long as someone's open to it, as you said, right? I guess if they're resisting or skeptical, but it'll take a little more time.
Yes.
And you've started your company over 10 years, right? What made you take the step to start your own company? So you were mentoring and teaching at Tony Robbins companies. And then after that, you've also worked in different companies. So what made you then come out and just say, okay, let me just start my own wellness center?
Funny thing is, it was not a conscious decision. It kind of just came up. So when I worked for Tony Robbins, it was, let's say, 4 to 5 months a year. And so it was intense time of working and then a break. And then while I took a break, I was also trained and I was training in hypnotherapy and I was training in coaching and I was even doing image consulting back then. And so at that point, my generous father offered me a space in his office to practice and to do private sessions during the times that I was not working for Tony Robbins. And that's actually how I started my own business, because in that spare time, I thought, why not see individual clients and why not put myself out there and see what comes? The modality that people resonated with the most from what I was sharing back then was hypnotherapy. And even if I was promoting something else at the time, because I was newer to hypnotherapy, they were like, no, this hypno thing, that sounds really interesting. Can I try that? Can I do that? And this skepticism at the time, for me, I personally felt that people were gravitating towards that modality with me. And I got to have experience in that. I got to see that the way that people shifted in that. And then I began to grow my practice because basically someone gifted me a space and said, here's a space, please do what you're meant to do. And then later on, my dad gifted me a bigger space and I could train and do workshops. And that's how it started.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing.
It's receiving the gifts, basically.
Yes.
And allowing myself to kind of move forward with that.
But also, yeah, as you said, allowing yourself to move forward or realizing that is a step towards, that direction that you're passionate about versus maybe, for some, maybe that's a fear, right? Like, okay, great, you gave me this, but I'm not ready. So it's also a big step for you each time, right? To kind of take it further. So that's amazing.
My strategy has always been interesting. Like when I learn, I prepare a client before I finish my learning. And that's just the way I've motivated myself. So when I was learning hypno, I'd already said, okay, I'm going to finish learning on this date. And a week later, I'm going to practice. And this is my first client. And it was a paid client. Okay, so I know that after I finish learning, I'm going to now revise. I'm going to do what it takes. I have a high standard for myself and I'm going to deliver. And I still do that until today. I learn a new technique. I learned some healing. I learned a somatic technique. I will have a client who's there willing to say, yes, please practice this on me. And then I will start.
That's great. So setting the goal so that you have to deliver it. You have to learn it so that you can deliver.
Because otherwise I know I'll be complacent. So this was a way to kind of motivate myself to do it.
That's great. So when you do your self-reflection, right? I mean, that's part of it, as you just said, like, you may get complacent. So that's one type of reflection. What other times or what other type would you do? And if for others, how would you suggest taking this to time for self-reflection? What direction to take it to? And what are some actions they can take after that?
Yeah, self-reflection is a really powerful tool because it gives us a different perspective. Because when we're doing stuff, we're kind of on the ground. And in self-reflection, we get a place of overview, like a balcony view of life, rather than being on the ground and being on the go, do. Right. So it's nice to have some questions to answer for self-reflection, because otherwise we'll be in circles thinking, well, what am I supposed to think about? Right. So I would say start with a review, maybe per day, per week. When have I felt most at peace and aligned? When have I not? So now you can begin to understand, okay, well, when was I in flow? When was I not in flow? Then let me understand why. what were the ingredients that placed me in that place of alignment? What was working for me? And maybe you'll begin to discover you felt purposeful at that time. You felt as if you were aligned to your mission or your vision. You felt connected. You were away from ego. And what is it for you that puts you in that zone? We begin to understand. And then the times that I was hijacked and I was away from flow, what begins to hijack me? And that kind of self-reflection is what I do on a regular basis as well. Understanding what takes me away from flow. So this time I felt hijacked. So I felt sad, or I felt scared, or I felt angry. Why? What was it that I was scared about? What was it that upset me? And it could sometimes be a childhood wound that opened up that, okay, maybe something happened and I took it to mean that I don't belong. And I took it to mean that I'm not being valued by this person or respected by this person. And why did that hurt so much? Okay, because it reminded me of what happened in school. And so now that becomes more of a self-reflection on what triggers me. Why does it trigger me? What belief systems do I have? And then, well, as a therapist, I know I can work on it. I can actually go and, speak to that younger version of myself. I can breathe through it. But if somebody's new to this, I would start with the reflections on the daily review. Like, when am I in flow? When am I not? What makes me in flow? Where am I not in flow? The part of me that is not in flow, what would that part like to say? And so in that expression, you're actually processing emotions. And then as you're writing about what does that part of me like to say, then you're able to actually read and get some insights on yourself.
Right.
And you can give expression to different aspects of your personality. You can give expression even to the flow part. So when I'm in flow, at that point, how do I feel and what would I like to say?
Wow. That's great.
I hope that helps.
Yes, it's helping me right now. Oh, no, that sounds great. I mean, it's quite different from how one would think about self-reflection, or at least what I think. I don't know what other people think, but it's usually more task-based, I guess. It's just the self-reflection is more like, okay, I did this, I didn't do it right or not, but I never thought of it in the flow or the other techniques that you just mentioned. So I definitely want to try that. So hopefully the listeners will get to kind of understand that tip and try it out. So over the years, so you started a company. What is the hardest thing, whether it's the beginning part or the certain period in between? What is the biggest challenge and how did you kind of overcome or have to pivot?
So my philosophy, which actually relates to what you just said, is not about being right or wrong. And the main work that I do is about moving away from judgment and moving away from, is this right? Is this wrong? Should I have done it? Should I have not done it? And it's more about learning and growing in consciousness. So to come back to the question, the challenges have been when things don't flow and in alignment with my expectations, where do I go with that? So I expected something else happened. And change is something that is difficult for most human beings, myself included, because, the subconscious mind has this tendency to want to survive. And we know that we're going to survive based on the knowns. And I've been in business for 18 years. And of course, in 18 years, we're going to see lots of different trends. And right now, what we're going through is also a trend. In the pandemic, what we went through was also a trend. So every time there is like a trend of something changes, and the challenge is, how is it impacting me and who am I going to be as a result, and how am I going to respond to this?
Wow. And over the years, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different trends, right? So maybe we can talk a little bit about that in terms of from the beginning till now, what are the biggest change over the years? You see how the audience reacts or how even like different in clientele. So we can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. The biggest shift that I've seen in mental health is the conversation about mental health is now common almost, right? It's there. It's out there. It's in the public. When I got into this field, like almost 2 decades ago, it was such a different landscape. And I was possibly the only person in most rooms that I went to that was in this industry that was talking about it, and people had no idea how to relate to me or why to come to a mental health professional. And it's kind of, am I mentally broken? Do I have to admit that there's something wrong with me? People were not seeing it the same way that they see going to a doctor, which is normal to have physical aches and pains, and it's normal to have mental and emotional breakdowns. We're so conditioned to believe that we shouldn't, and we need to pretend all is well, that people didn't even know where to place me. So that was in the beginning. Today, I go into a room, let alone it being normal, there are so many practitioners. In fact, that I've gone to networking events recently, and let's say 30% were practitioners themselves. And so there's so many more mental health practitioners, whether it's like psychologists, coaches, therapists of any sort. So I think That's the biggest shift that I have seen in the conversation of mental health. And then, of course, there's different trends. Business was not seasonal at all for me for 3 years during the pandemic. It was like one season. And thankfully, that season was, we're on, right? People are not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. They're looking inwards. They're realizing that their coping mechanisms are not so available. They can't travel. They can't go out and drink. They can't run away. So they're at home, they're with their families and facing their stuff. And so that time was actually great for business for me. And so adapting to that. And then we did a lot more workshops and programs, and people were using their annual leave to attend workshops. And that was great.
That is great. And then you did a lot online, I'm guessing?
Yes, that's when the online trend started, and we started doing things on Zoom and workshops online. That was great. And then when things started opening up, now there's another trend where it was pretty drastic, at least from my company, where we were going into full house to, oh, people are traveling now and they're not available the way they used to be. And so that was another trend. People got the freedom to go out, especially in Hong Kong. And now that's beginning to settle and something else is emerging with AI.
Right. Speaking of that, how do you incorporate AI or plan to incorporate a bit more with that?
I find AI like such a beautiful, useful tool, which can be used in conjunction with therapy. I remember this one time where my client said to me, I want to show you something. She shared her screen and she asked ChatGPT, how would Sonia Samtani help me to resolve this issue? And she wrote down her issue. So she named her issue and she asked what I would say. And she showed me the answer, which was kind of getting typed in the moment. And I was just amazed. And this is like going back almost a year ago. And I was like, it's right. That's what I would tell you to do. And I would ask you to look beyond this issue, to look at what belief system. And then I would ask you to identify your emotion. Then I would ask you to look at where the emotion resides in your body. Then I would ask you to think of an alternative way of behaving and believing. So it basically got my formula and presented it back to my client. And she said, I found this really useful between our sessions.
Oh my God.
And now I actually encourage so many of my clients to do that between our sessions, because personally, I see people, let's say once a month, because I do really intense work and it takes time to process. And if there's any questions in between, they've actually checked in with AI. It's been beautiful. They've got
AI, Sonya.
I know. Or whichever other therapist, you can ask for any therapist view and you'll get it. And then what they get from me is something a little deeper and something a little different. Like, I don't think it can take away what they get from me, because there's presence, there's love, there's connection, there's acceptance. And when we're truly moving through an issue and you're with someone and you're completely present to them, that's the gift of another human being with you. And AI can't give you that gift, or AI can give you many other gifts. So let's work alongside that. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing that you're completely okay and embracing it, right? Like versus could feel a little bit like, oh, what's going on? And just taking my work and, summarize it from before, right? And then kind of bringing back down to a formula. Yeah, no, it's great that you're embracing it. And as you said, it's just moving side by side and complementing what you're working with your clients. So that's awesome.
The way to go, really. Yeah. And I think we might as well embrace it and see how it can make life easier in so many ways, how it can make therapy easier, how it can kind of move us forward. Yeah.
Right. And with the latest trends, right, as you said, like you see a lot more practitioners and the general population, right, putting more focus on health, wellness, fitness, mental health. Do you see different categories coming up in terms of issues and what type of things people want to work on? And do you feel like they're demanding or wanting different types of methods to help?
Yeah, I feel like people now are more well-versed. Like previously, when I would meet clients, I would get a lot more clients who've never done any type of self-work before. And now, even if I'm meeting a client for the first time, this is not their first session with someone. They would have done coaching or counseling or Reiki or healing or something. Then what they're looking for can also be more wisdom, is what I find. Like your question was like, is it different? So before I would find perhaps there's more resolution, like people were in that victim mode and wanting a resolution. So something's happened to me. My dad was strict. My mom didn't give me enough attention. My husband's controlling. My wife doesn't listen. So I'm the victim and I have all of these emotions and I would like to resolve these emotions. Today, I'm looking at people wondering, well, what's the lesson for me? Why is this happening to me? I'd like to understand, like even with disease, before I would get people saying, I have this ache and pain in my body, help me release it because I've gone to all of these different therapies and, I've not found a solution. Today, people would say, I'd like to understand why. Even if I had something like breast cancer, I want to understand the deeper reason to why did I manifest that? Because diseases can be emotionally driven. So what emotion caused that? What can I release and how can I prevent it? So people are coming more in wisdom mode is what I found.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. They want to find out deeper, right? And where kind of more to the root of it versus just help me get rid of it.
Which is very nice to see. And I'm a wisdom person myself. Like I love understanding the why behind things. Yeah. I think that's also why I love AI because it gives you an understanding of the why and it answers questions so directly. But when people come to me in wisdom mode, wanting to understand the deeper things, and my work can get spiritual if a person is open to it. We go into life purpose. We go into what's your lesson? Why are we attracting things? What lessons keep showing up? To the extent of why did you choose this mother and this father in this lifetime? And how can they contribute to the lesson that we're here to learn? Because they are fixed events in your life that are not going to change. And they would be contributing in some way to why we are here and what we're here to learn.
Right. So some of the past life discoveries, I guess, does that?
Yeah. So the past lives can impact us. So some lives are happy lives and they could be our resources and lives where we developed courage or strength or faith and that can help us today. And some lives are unresolved. It's a lesson that I did not learn. Maybe you did not learn how to accept parts of duality. So when somebody passes away, you did not accept that. You became a victim of your parent that passed. That can be carried forward. And now this life, you will pick parents that will give you a certain experience that would be propelling you to learn that lesson. And you can choose either to be a victim of that experience. And that fixed event could be, my parents wanted a boy, not a girl for some people. And so maybe you plan that in order for you to learn how to accept yourself. And it's up to us how to interpret that. I know it's
interesting.
It's a deep topic. Yeah.
Yes, it's so interesting. And I can imagine from your part, just so many different people coming with different types of understanding and issues and further like analyzing it and some probably accepting more than the others.
Yeah. And we can go at the surface level and we can go deep. So if somebody wants to come to just tackle anger, like I'm really angry and I get angry when deadlines are not met, or I get angry when people are late. So it's a specific anger with a specific trigger. Let's just work on that. We can do that. Or we can go deep and actually understand purpose of life, why we're here, depending on where a person is at.
Right. Well, that's great that you're so versatile as well, right? Being able to kind of match the energy and the level that your client would like to go. But in addition to your business and your day-to-day with client interaction, you do a lot of speaking engagement as well. Now, is that also part of the job, I guess? Is that part of being in this field? Or do you specifically kind of seek that out, seek the opportunity to talk and because you like that particular interaction?
Yeah, I do. I particularly really enjoy public speaking and I would love to spread awareness to more people. And one of the most natural ways to do that is through speaking engagements. So I do get called to different events to be a keynote speaker to talk about, let's say, the power of the mind, mindfulness, what is hypnotherapy, understanding procrastination, how to reprogram the subconscious mind, or anything that's related to my subject area. And I'm very happy to deliver on that, whether it's a corporate or it's something to kind of raise awareness for mental health. I've been called to various different events through the years, and I love it, actually. I'm usually very aligned with the why, if it's like an association. And if it's a corporate, I think it is great for people and companies to actually have these kind of conversations and get a space to release from the pressure and, the competition or the hierarchy or whatever else is going on in the background.
And do you feel like there's a lot more acceptance, I guess, since corporate are approaching you? Do you feel like that is the general kind of culture nowadays for corporations to really get involved and offer these sessions to their employees?
I think they're more open than before. Asia still has room to grow. Hong Kong still has room to grow. Like, so let's say in North America, it's required, it's mandatory for there to be a budget allocated to mental health support. Employees do benefit from that, and they invite people in. In Hong Kong, it's not mandatory for most companies. Some companies do it. Some of them see the benefit in it. So I still feel like there is room to grow in that, because Hong Kong has valued achievement for such a long time and valued knowledge. So if there is any course that would help them, with time management faster, or to improve performance, or to kind of learn a new skill, there's budget allocated for that.
Yes, makes sense. And if it helps the bottom line eventually, right, for a corporate, I'm sure they're all for that too. So if someone's looking into, there's a lot more practitioners, as you said, and if someone's just starting out and looking into having their own practice, or even just getting into the industry, what particular advice would you give them?
That it takes time to establish, know what you want, gain clarity. For me, I was actually very organic. I was not clear about where I would love to reach. I kind of just flowed with it. And if somebody's keen on, okay, I'd like to be a therapist, a coach, somebody in the mental health practice, and they're moving, let's say, from corporate, it's not necessarily straight away going to give you the same income as your corporate did. It's going to take a little bit of time. So let's be prepared for that. It takes something. And understand your numbers, have a business plan for yourself, be realistic about it, and then know why you're doing what you're doing. So one is set realistic expectations, set a timeline for yourself, and then understand what your mission is, because the mission and the purpose would be deeper than that. And so you're here to maybe allow people to self-reflect and love the parts of themselves that they judged in the past. You're here to inspire people to connect with their inner resources and tools. So what is that deeper mission that you're following? Keep that, have that in one sentence, and keep coming back to that, because that is what is going to keep us moving forward. And that is what I kept connecting to.
Amazing. And that advice goes with everyone, actually, not just someone going into this industry, right? Like anyone that wants to improve, start something new, and maybe jump to another business. That's amazing. And what are the next things? Any next big projects or expansions within your business?
Yes, so I would love to write more programs. That is something that I'm very keen to do. I have developed many techniques in the past, and now I'd like to actually formulate them and teach them professionally. So I'm taking some time out this year to write a couple of courses that I'm looking forward to launch next year, to put together some techniques, some of my own therapeutic techniques that I've developed through the years, and be able to teach that. So I'm really passionate about training people, actually. I love training people to help others. And that's what I'd like to continue doing more of. And so whenever I'm training a group of therapists and teaching them a new modality, like how to heal inner child, how to look at different subpersonalities, how to help someone process their emotions, where the emotions are stored in the body, I love doing more of that. So that is what I'm going to do more of. And then maybe launch a product alongside that in conjunction to it, maybe a deck or something that can help.
Sounds good. Looking forward to hearing more and seeing that in the future. And lastly, just wanted to kind of summarize, what do you think are your main skill sets and traits that have brought you to today's success?
So for me, it's been a commitment. Like I've been very committed to my own self-practice. So commitment to my self-practice. Then it is about practicing what I would preach, which is my mission is to bring consciousness globally by having people give love and acceptance to the parts of themselves that they have judged. And that is what I continue doing with my self-reflection, discovering parts of myself that I've judged and continuing to give love and healing to that. And then raising awareness with discernment. Discernment is not judgment. Discernment is knowing what works for me and what doesn't. So whereas judgment has right and wrong, discernment is, am I in flow or am I not in flow? So kind of like putting that together, it would be commitment. It would be giving love to the parts that I've judged, and then continuing to raise awareness with discernment for me.
Amazing. And I love that inflow. And maybe it's very common in your industry, but I think we don't hear enough of that or say enough of that outside of the industry. And I like that versus just, did I do something right or wrong, or can I do it better? I think it's what makes me in flow or out of flow, and how does that feel, and what can I do to change that?
It's a small shift, but it has such huge repercussions, because if we're asking ourselves, am I right or wrong? And most of the time we're quite harsh on ourselves, then you're going to feel wrong. But if we're checking, is this loving? Am I in flow? It's a very different mindset, and you'll get a different answer.
For sure. I'm already thinking through. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a much more gentle way of thinking through things. things and more encouraging, right? Because it's all inflow. So you feel like it's more of a positive and energetic feeling. So that's great. And before we wrap, just something kind of lighter. What is something that, well, fun fact of yourself or something that, people will be surprised to find out about you?
Okay. I think people might be surprised to find out that I enjoy shooting. Like going to a shooting range, and
Wow.
I've not done it for a long time. Yeah, even you're surprised.
Yes. I was like, did I hear right? Shooting? Yeah.
I haven't done it for a long time, but when
Yeah.
I was young, I would like archery. And then a while ago, I discovered shooting, and I haven't
Mm.
held a pistol for a while, but I just found it great for focus, great for aim, really nice catharsis, and I really
Mm.
enjoyed it. Um,
Wow.
and that normally surprises people when I tell them because I'm this heel
Yes.
that enjoys shooting, and they kind of think that that's different.
Yes. It does seem very different, but I understand it's a very kind of like cathartic and just kind of get in the flow of
And,
doing
and,
that one
it's
thing.
exactly, it's like boxing. It's like, just releasing that energy out.
Yeah. Yeah. And like golf, I don't golf much, but when I do go to the driving range, I feel like that's kind of the feeling, right? You're only focused on hitting the ball because I'm so bad. It takes so much focus to just hit it. So that's all I think about. So, and which is feel relaxed. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for joining us and giving us all the advice.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks.